Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. Today's video, we're going to be looking at start collecting Warcry, and we're going to be looking at how to start collecting an Idoneth Deepkin Warband for Warhammer Age of Sigmar Warcry. Now, I reckon a great way to get into a ton of the warbands are usually start collecting boxes available for the particular armies that you can make the warbands of. And so that's what we're going to be using as the basis for our Idoneth Deepkin. With the Idoneth Deepkin box, let's start looking at the contents of it. For starters, we've got a character model in it that is an Ishran Soul Render. So the Ishran Soul Render in Warcry is a pretty capable hero. I mean, he's got a decent amount of wounds at 22. I mean, he's only defense 3, that is his big weakness, and generally a weakness of Idoneth across the board. They generally are quite frail, but he does have a 2-5 damage, reach 2 attack, as well as some range damage of 3 from his little fishy buddy. So he's pretty good, and he's got some cool little abilities he can do over the course of the game in a bunch of different ways. He's got some really cool different things he can do, and we'll get into the abilities a little bit later in the video. We then got 10 Namadi Thralls. These are your very baseline troop. They are pretty cheap in Warcry standards at 80 renown each, and you know, 2-4 and strength of 3, 4 attacks each. They're fairly decent in a fight. They've got a lot of attacks there that they can hopefully just start fishing for. See that what I did there, for those crits with a higher volume of attacks, and you can get a decent amount in. The last thing we get inside the box set is a box of Achillean Guard. Now, Achillean Guard can be built as one of two variants of the, quote, Eel Riders. They can either be built as offensive eels, which are Morsar Guard, or they can be built as defensive eels, which are known as Ishlean Guard. Both of these have different things they can do. Obviously, offensive eels, they're all about the attack. They've got some really cool things. Like they've got 2-4 in the damage, and they have some cool abilities with them. And then the Ishlean Guard have a toughness of 4 as well, which both Namadi do. But they also have some cool abilities as well on them that are a little bit different. So you've got a few things to play around with. Both the Namadi Thrall and the Achillean Guard have leader variants as well that you can use. Obviously, you're only able to use one leader, so you're going to have to weigh up, is really a, I guess, a leader option from some of these particular warbands better than the Soul Render, who is only a leader and can't be built as any other option within the kit. So that's what we've got to start with. Let's start looking at how we can expand some things we can bring into Warcry from the other parts of the Idoneth Deepkin range. And so the other options we have for the warband are pretty easy. We've only got one other box set that's available to us as an option in Warcry from the Idoneth Deepkin range, and that is the Namadi Reavers box set. Once again, you've got the Namadi Reaver that can take an icon, so this can be a leader option for the force, but Namadi Reavers as the non-leader option are pretty cool. I mean, they've got a cost of 75 renown, which is really cheap. In fact, it's the cheapest single Idoneth Deepkin, 5 points cheaper than Namadi Thralls. And the Reavers have a bow that's, 15 inch, 1 and 3 for its damage. It's only strength 3, but they got 2 shots with it. So they've got a bit of use, I guess. Really cheap archers are really good in Warcry, and so a couple of Namadi Thralls in your Namadi Reavers, in your force can go a long way to really help you just do that little bit of chip damage that helps your bigger, stronger units be able to take stuff out of the battle. Now, talking about bigger, stronger thing, the other options for Idoneth Deepkin are your other hero options that can be taken. You can take an Achillean King, which is your strongest piece available to you in Idoneth Deepkin. He does cost a hefty price tag of 280 renown though, and his weapon's not bad. 4 attacks, strength 4, 2-5 for his damage. He's got 38 wounds and a defensive 4, which is really great. That's like massively bigger than anything else in the Idoneth Deepkin arsenal there with 38 wounds. I mean, it's 13 bigger than your Achillean Guard. So he's got a place in there as definitely that really big center strong piece if you wish to go down that route. The other options you've got your Soul Scryer and your Tidecaster are more priest wizardy sort of variants. The Tidecaster has some cool ranged ability with its magic for 3-6, which is pretty nifty. And then the Soul Scryer's got some cool abilities. Both of them have really some cool abilities they can do. And really, this is going to be the option you're playing up. The Achillean King is by far just the out-and-out combat beat stick of the hero options you have available to you, while the others all sort of bring different things to the table. So it's really taking up those options, deciding what you want to do with them, really, that makes your hero option choosable for you. So, those abilities, let's take a look at them. What's really cool is a ton of the armies that are inside the Grand Alliance books for Warhammer Age of Sigmar Warcry get both fighter and leader abilities. This is really cool, so it allows all your leaders to influence the game in different ways. Now, let's start by looking at the fighter abilities first. We've got three doubles, a triple, and a quad. So, our double abilities. First of all, we have Low Tide. This can be used by any Idoneth Deepkin model, so this includes a bunch of the different things you can take. So a fighter can use this ability in the first battle round. They can make a bonus move action equal to the number of inches of the value. So this can be really cool. This can help get your models in range really early and just allow you to set those traps and ambushes up correctly and get board control early on within the game. A really cool, useful ability. You've also got the double sweeping blow, so what this allows you to do is with your Namadi Thralls, who are the ones that get to use this ability, they effectively can attack a whole bunch of models in range. So they roll 1 dice for each visible enemy fighter within 2 inches of the fighter, and on a 5 they allocate a damage point, and on a 6 they allocate a number of damage points equal to the value. So it is, I guess, a little bit of a gamble here, but it could be pretty cool. And this is an ability, so you can use this after you've attacked or moved, so you can do this and try and maybe get some extra splash damage. If you've got a lot of enemy fighters near you, this can really, I guess, come in handy. Then got double Storm of Fire, and this can be used by your Namati Reavers. Until the end of this fighter's activation, you add 1 to the attack characteristic of their ranged weapons whilst they're more than 3 inches away. Cool, it's just getting some extra shots, and like I said before with the Namadi Reavers, they're really useful. With 2 shots base already, 3 shots, you know, damage 3, you're really trying to swing for those crits, but they've got some good ability and they're nice and cheap. I really do think they're a useful unit to have in your Idoneth Deepkin Warband for Warcry. Then got Biovoltic Barrier, which can be used by the defensive ills or the Ishlean Guard. Until the end of the battle round, count each critical hit from attack actions to target this fighter as a normal hit instead. This is really good. This can really turn the tides of battle and make your opponent just sweat. You got to remember that your Ishlean Guard have 25 wounds apiece, and they're a toughness of 4, so removing crits from the equation can really mean that only the biggest stuff in the game is actually going to hurt them. And even then, they're going to struggle to put that many wounds out in a turn with no crits available. Lastly, your quad, and the only quad available to Idoneth Deepkin in total, is Biovoltic Blast. So this is for the Morsar Guard, your offensive eels. You can allocate a number of damage points equal to the value of its ability to all enemy fighters within 3 inch. This can be ridiculous. If you got a 6 on this for your quad, you could do some serious damage. Not to mention you can double this up with Sweeping Blow to try and remove vast swaths of people around. If you pair like a Thrall with your as like, I guess, your little squire for your Ishlean Guard, your Morsar Guard, it could be a really cool little combo to do a lot of damage to a lot of enemies at once. But let's get looking at our leader abilities. First of all, we've got Double and Riptide. So Riptide is able to be used by the Tidecaster. So you can pick a visible enemy fighter within 12 inches of the fighter until the end of the battle round. You subtract 1 from the attack characteristics from that fighter. Cool, it gives you the ability to turn off some of your opponent's stuff. This combined with maybe taking, you know, some of the heavier sort of stuff within your force, so the Ishlean Guard, can really mean you can just set up just choke points of models that your opponent just can't get rid of. Hangman's Knot is available to be used, and it's a double, and it's available to the Soul Render. That's our Anglerfish buddy that we're going to get in the Start Collecting box. You can pick a visible enemy fighter within 3 inches of him, and on a 3+ until the end of the battle round, it cannot make move or disengage actions, as it sort of lures them in with his little Anglerfish light. We've then got the double Storm of Blows, and this is available to your Achillean King at half the value of this ability, rounding up to the attack characteristics of attacks with a range of 3 or less used by the fighter. So this can really start just putting more attacks out onto that Achillean King, allowing him to just go combat nuts on your opponents. You then also got Scryfish Shoal, and this is the one available to our Isharan Shoal Scryer. So you can pick a visible enemy fighter within 10 inches of this fighter and you roll 6 dice. For each 3 to 5, you add 1 damage point. For each 6, allocate 2 damage points to the targeted fighter. It's got some cool range damage output. Now, out of all of those, I really do think that Hangman's Knot and the Riptide are definitely the ones with a lot more sort of utility potential, while the Achillean King is sort of the combat beast. Lastly, we've got an ability that's available to all our different leader fighters, and this is High Tide. So a fighter can use this ability only if it's the 3rd battle round. Add 1 to the attacks and strength characteristic of attack actions that have a range of 3 or less made by friendly fighters whilst they're within 6 inches of this fighter. So you can really just turn on a bunch of your units and really just give them a ton of damage potential that they otherwise might not have. But that's all the abilities. Let's go looking in how we can build up a starting Idoneth Deepkin force, and we use the start collecting box as a base for it. Alright, so here we've got a sample army that comes to 950 renown. It was a little bit hard to fill out that last 50 and sort of work it around without not getting some of the pieces I wanted in the force. So to start with, we've got our Isra and Soulrender. Now, this would be rather easy potentially to swap him out, and it may actually open up a few other options for you if you do so for, say, the Soulscryer or Tidecaster. You could also go the other way maybe and swap it out and get in your Achillean King, and you're probably going to drop your Morsar Guard if you have to do that, because you're just going to run out of points and models on the table. However, I do think the general place for a warband is probably between 8 to 10 miniatures. You're really not wanting many less than that, or you're going to really struggle for board control, I think, in Warcry. So I've gone for a Soulrender. I really like his double ability of Hangman's Knot. I think it can really help just play into the abilities of your Idoneth Deepkin. Now, I've then gone for one of each version of the Achillean Guard, both a Morsar and an Achillean Guard. And the reason for this is I think they both offer very different things to the force that we otherwise don't get with a lot of our other units. The Morsar Guard is just our absolute beatstick. He goes in and he smashes stuff. Meanwhile, the Achillean Guard can hold up enemies and can really tank a ton of damage if we get some of those triples happening. I've then got two Namadi Throngs. I've gone for them over, say, Reavers in this instance, because I do think you need a couple of combat options. If the Reavers get caught in combat, they could be in a little bit of trouble. And the Namadis, you know, flat damage 2 and potential crit of 4 is pretty nice there on the Thralls. Reavers, as mentioned a ton, I think they're a really useful unit to have in your force as Idoneth Deepkin. They just give you that shooting and that chip damage ability, and they're also pretty decently fast. I mean, most of your Idoneth Deepkin are, but Reavers get that extra move on the Thralls, so they're 6 instead of 5. I think you've got a ton of play with this potential force, and like I said, there's some options you can change around and do a bunch of different things with them. But for me, I think this is a nice starting point. What do you think? Have you been playing Idoneth Deepkin and Warcry? Let us know how you've been going and what you've been using down below in the comments. Well, thank you for watching the video. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, if you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our little community here at Sinful Gaming, you can do so by following the link in the description to our Discord server. And while you're here on YouTube, why not go check out my featured channel section, which contains a bunch of other fantastic Warhammer Age of Sigmar content creators ranging from battle reports, tactical videos, narrative, lore stuff, painting videos, and more besides that as well. Lastly though, we'd like to give a shout out to everyone who supports the channel via Patreon and YouTube members. Thank you to our patrons: Christian Weir, James Soren, Chaos Spawn, AJC, Kenny Lowell, Outer and Shot First, James Crowder, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, Tim Newman, The Rising Ape, and Cure Dynamic. Thank you also to our YouTube members Green Roots Gaming and Fire Titan. Thank you all for supporting the channel, it means the world to us. Lastly, if you'd like to help support the channel like these fine people do, you can do so by following the links to Patreon and YouTube members in the description of the video as well. Thank you all for watching, stay safe everyone, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.